Hello, everyone. Welcome to Go Publish Yourself, an IngramSpark podcast. I'm Robin Cutler, the director of IngramSpark.
And I'm Justine Bilo, and I manage the Author Acquisitions Program.
And I'm so glad you do, Justine, because we have fantastic authors using IngramSpark, authors and publishers.
Thanks, Robin. I think we do too.
So today we're going to be talking about I think, probably the most important subject for authors to really know about, and that's about book metadata. Is it book metadata or metadata?
I think it's data, but tomato, Robin.
So why is book metadata really important, Justine? What do you think?
Book metadata is so important because it's how you help readers find your book. And if you have not very good metadata, those readers won't find the wonderful piece of work you've put out into the world.
So you're talking about finding your book online, like finding your book on an Amazon site.
Exactly,
for instance,
Robin.
right?
Yeah.
So what are key points of metadata? Like when we talk about metadata, what exactly are we talking about?
So it's just a really fancy word for all the information about your book. And that can be the author name, it can be your author bio, just the title of the book, all the way down to your book description. So it's just all the information that belongs to your book.
So you can see, Justine and I know a fair amount about metadata, but we actually have today joining us who I consider the metadata queen or the guru, especially here at Ingram Content Group, Margaret Harrison. So welcome to our podcast here today, Margaret.
Hi guys, thanks so much for having me. Love being here.
So tell us exactly how you became the guru, the expert that you are really in the whole industry.
Oh, thanks. Well, I've worked my whole career in publishing, and I started out on the ebook side, working for Overdrive, a major distributor of ebooks to public libraries. And I'm focusing on ebooks. So much of it is about the metadata, not just getting it into getting books into channels, but also making sure those books, as Justine said, can be discoverable, can be found. And so started spending a lot more of my time on metadata, and I'm a curious person, so got to know a lot, and here I am.
So if you had to give us your top tips for authors for how they could improve their metadata, what would you tell them?
Oh, great question. So there are so many small things that authors can do to make a big impact on their book metadata. So the first thing would be your brand, so your name being out there. A big challenge that authors can have is making sure that they are discoverable as an individual. So you want your name to be out there and to be found, against other authors. So you want to make sure that your name is consistent in the way that you're sending it out. So if you have a middle initial you're using, make sure you're using that consistently in your metadata. You also want to make sure that your biography is also out there so that people can find information about you as an author and also can find you through online search.
So I'm glad you mentioned about the consistency in the author name. One of the things that drives me crazy, and I harp on all the time when I speak to authors, is you'll see their name listed one way, like on a site, maybe with an initial, and then you see the cover of their book and it doesn't have that in it. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, and that's a great tip, Robin, is you want to make sure that all the information that's on the cover of your book also shows up in your metadata. So the way that you're presenting your name on your book cover should also be how you're showing it in your metadata. And similarly, your title, you want exactly the title that's on your metadata that's on your cover should also be in your metadata.
Should match perfectly.
Great tip. Yes.
Yeah, it drives me crazy.
So we hear all the time about BISACs and keywords. Now, BISAC is kind of an intimidating word, and not many people know what it is. So can you tell us how those help your book be discovered?
Yeah, so BISACs are a subject code. It's a standard set of subject codes. And it's a wonderful tool for authors actually, because as we all know, we all have our own way of talking about books and a rich way of describing our books. But what the BISAC subject code schema does is it gives us a vocabulary of how we should be talking about our books. And so it's a set list of subject codes. And so when you're preparing your metadata for your book, it's a list of subjects that you can choose from to describe your book.
So if you walked into a bookstore and you saw the romance historical section, that's done by BISACs, right?
That's exactly right, yes. In the US, that's exactly how it's done. All of those names of categories on the physical shelves in a bookstore, those exactly map back to the BISAC subject codes.
Yeah, I tell authors, when they're thinking, even before they finish writing their book, they should think about where it would be placed, like on a shelf in a bookstore,
Yeah.
in a library, and really go and look at those books, like where exactly you think your book would be shelved.
That's exactly right, and you can envision it,
Mm-hmm.
and so when it translates 100% to the online search environment as well, and so what you want to think about doing is you want to choose the most specific subject code that you can, because if you are choosing, for example, if you're a fiction writer and you choose a general fiction code, you are marketing or positioning your book against hundreds of thousands of other fiction titles out there. Whereas if you choose a more specific category, you are competing against a much smaller number of titles. And one of the ways you can find out sort of the competition is to go online to an Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And if you are doing some research in each of those categories, you can drill down into a specific genre. So, if you're looking at thriller mysteries or women's literature, you can drill into those categories and just look at the search page or the list of books, and you can see about how many titles are listed in each category.
So in IngramSpark, our authors can choose 3 different BISAC codes. So how does that work, and what should they be doing to use all 3?
I love that. First of all, A+, Robin, for including 3 subject codes. That's wonderful. Because yes, you do want to choose more. So you want to be careful, because you want to choose the subject categories that are relevant to your book. But it's also, we always talk here at Ingram about, we have so many wonderful librarians who are excellent at categorizing books into the specific category that's relevant to their title, but it is also a marketing play as well. And so you want to think about connecting with your audience. Where are they going to be looking for your content? What kinds of categories or topics are they interested in, and how can you reach them? So you do want to choose at least 2, 3. If you're an overachiever, yes, great. And so pick those 3 categories, and you can go across subjects as well. And so obviously for fiction, you're choosing fiction subjects, but if you're a nonfiction writer, you can, for example, cross-merchandise. If you're writing a political book that maybe has a religious overtone, you can choose a religious category as well as a political subject category. So you can cross-merchandise in different subjects, and that has been proven to actually be really effective as well.
Yeah, we've seen that in our own authors.
We really have. Choosing the 3 BISACs definitely helps.
Great.
The other thing that we tell authors that helps their book is keywords. And a lot of authors and publishers don't fill out the keywords. So tell us why it's so deeply important to have some keywords in there.
Oh, that's great. So yes, keywords are a great tool that you have in your toolkit as an author. And so we actually, the approach that I always talk about when I talk about keywords is, I call it a 360 approach to keywords. And what I mean by that is you want to choose, and we'll talk in a moment about how to choose those keywords, how to identify the ones that will be most relevant. But so you want to choose a few words or phrases that apply to your book, and that customers, your readers would use in searching for your title. include those in the keyword field, but you do also want to look at how can I incorporate those into my description as well. Because that every time as you incorporate that keyword more and more, it's sort of increasing the footprint of that keyword in your metadata and making it more discoverable. So the keywords that you want to the strategy for identifying the keywords that will be most relevant is, again, to think about how your readers might be talking about your book. So it could be a word, as I said, or a phrase. So it might be it might be a character. So if you have a novel, it might be a character from your book.
So if I am searching for a book on Amazon about cats, and I put in the words children's book about cats, like what would you suggest as some keywords for that?
Yeah, great. So a children's book about cats. So again, if there's an identifiable character, you could pull that out. But you might, kids cat book, right? Might be one keyword that you could use.
So you can use phrases too.
You can use phrases too. And one way to see, there are a few ways that you can do keyword research. So one is to go to Google or to go to Amazon and start typing in. So for your children's book about cats, so you might type in children's cat book, and then as you type that in, there will actually be a sort of drop down menu in your search bar, and that will give you, those aren't random searches. Those are actually the most popular searches that are associated with those keywords. And this, you can do the same thing at Amazon, and you can do it at the sort of Amazon.com level, or you can choose the book category, and that will actually give you searches that are most relevant to the book category and not just across Amazon as a whole. So those are going to give you some of the searches that that readers are entering when they're looking for books, say, about for children about cats. Yes.
So let's talk, you mentioned description, and make sure that you include your keywords in your description.
Yes.
What else, what other tips can you give our listeners about the look and feel of your description, how you can improve how it even looks on a site?
Yeah, great question. So description has always been one of the most important metadata fields, because it tells your reader what they're, what he or she is going to get when she or he buys your book. So it is your way of, it's your elevator pitch to say what's inside the pages. But there are some very practical things that you can do to your description. So the first thing is, I've been recommending to authors, to our IngramSpark authors, that we include what we call a headline at the beginning of the description. So what that looks like is it's one or two sentences that just is, really your elevator pitch for your book. It's what draws them in, and ideally you're including one or two keywords in that headline as well. And it should be bolded, and that's for a few reasons. So one is that when a reader goes to see to look at your book online, it's just drawing their eye to what is the most important part of your marketing copy. But the other reason is that search engines such as Amazon and Google are actually picking up on the formatting in your description, and they know that that is an important tool to drive more sales and to get readers to buy more books. And so they actually will give you, it's a small marker, but it might give you actually a little bit of an advantage in your search results, so that when you are searching for a children's book about cats, your title might go up one or two or three or more spots in the search results than it would otherwise without that formatting. So you can, again, bold that headline in your description and make sure you're including that one or two sentences. The other thing is to make sure that you are formatting your description. And what I mean by that is to just be breaking it out so it's more readable to the eye. So including paragraph breaks, not just one big block of text.
Yeah, because that big block of text can be intimidating.
And it's boring.
It is,
right.
yeah.
And again, those search engines are smart. Amazon and others, they know that that's a more enjoyable experience for a reader. And so again, they're giving a little bit of an edge to those titles in the search results.
And you want to be one of those titles with an edge.
Yes,
So,
of course.
and just to add to that, so for our listeners that are already using IngramSpark, there's an editing tool that's right on top of the description field. And that's how you can actually very easily bold the text that Margaret's talking about or put in those line breaks that she's talking about too.
That's wonderful.
It's just like a Word document.
Yeah, it's very easy and handy to do.
Oh, that's great.
So we're close to running out of time here. So what's like one last thing you want to send us off with, a good tip that we can do?
Well, yeah, we've covered some great stuff. We've covered keywords, we've covered subjects, we've covered descriptions. I would say that one last thing when it comes to your metadata is to think about the trend in how people are buying books, and that is that they are shopping for books on a mobile device. And so one of the things that you can think about, I think all the tips that we've given today definitely help with search and discoverability, but one last thing would be to look at, do some research, look at how your book is presented on a mobile device like a phone or a tablet, and just sort of see what that experience looks like. And you may want to think about if you haven't yet published your book and you're thinking about what to do, that means a shorter title. So you want a title that is 80 characters or less, including the subtitle. And the reason we say that is really because of that mobile optimization. So you want to make sure that when a reader is searching for a book on a phone, that they can see your entire title or as much as possible on a mobile device. Again, that's about discoverability, but it's also just understanding the market and really understanding the behavior and the way that readers are looking for
So
books.
80 characters for a
80
title.
characters
That's
or
really
less.
good. Yeah, I love that.
Less than a tweet.
Yeah. So this has been fantastic, Margaret and Justine. This has been great to spend time with you this afternoon. Did we decide on metadata or metadata?
Well, I say metadata, but I do think that if you say metadata, you might sound a little bit smarter.
And there we have it, the word from the expert.
So I just want to invite our listeners to visit us on IngramSpark.com. Sign up for our blog. I think our blog is one of the best in the industry.
It's pretty fantastic. We've had some great industry experts, including Margaret, do blog posts for us.
Yeah, so please visit us and we will talk to you next time.
See you next time.
Thanks for having me.